behind physical health and past life. Why am I having these disease states in this life? Did that come from a past life? And secondly, mental health and past life. Why do some people have mental conditions such as depression and anxiety in this life? Could it be also stemming from a past life? And then lastly, how Raja Yoga meditation works on the body and on the mind. So the first point to think about or contemplate on is, can disease in the body stem from a past life? So in order to answer that question, we looked at what research is published out there, and all that is evidence-based medicine, which means that sufficient studies were done in order to prove that this is true. And one of the leading scientists in that field is Dr. Ian Stevenson. He basically studied past life memories and how they affected our body currently. He's a very well-known psychiatrist, and he studied at Virginia University, and he focused on reincarnation, and he has a lot of publications on that subject. So what he concluded, that emotions and memories and bodily features can be transformed from one life to another. So this is part of his research. For example, if you see in this picture of a child, there is on his chest, there is a mark on his chest. And this child, when he was interviewed, remembered the life of a man who was killed with a shotgun in the chest. So basically, the interpretation was that this soul was in a man's body previously, who was traumatized, shot in the chest, kept that memory, and then that memory was translated in his current body. This is a picture of another child, and this child has a deformed ear. This boy remembered that a man who was shot in the head, and that soul was in the man's body in the previous life. And then when he moved on to the boy's body in this life, the memory kept going on because the traumatic event was recorded in the soul. And so it affected his current body. In this picture, there's a finger amputation. So you see the right hand has some fingers that were cut. And this person remembered that in a past life, he put his hands in a blade inside a machine, and his hands were cut in a past life, but the memory, which was stored in the soul, lingered on to this current life. So Dr. Ian Stevenson answered the question, can physical manifestations or memories in the past life be transferred to the current life? And the research says yes. So the second point to think about is, can dis-ease in the mind come from a past life? So people who have mental conditions such as anxiety or depression, or who were suffering a lot mentally in a past life, can that be transformed to a current life? One of the leaders of science in past life memories and regression is Dr. Brian Weiss. You probably have heard about him. He's a world-renowned leader and a psychiatrist who went to Yale University, and he studied past life regression, and he has a lot of publication on that. And he basically was able to prove through his research that people who had mental illnesses or even discomforts in the mind in a past life were transferred to current life. One of his most famous books is Many Lives, Many Masters. And this was a true story of a woman who he named Catherine in this book for confidentiality. And she was a young woman who had a lot of anxieties and psychological problems. And she was a difficult case. Nobody could help her or heal her. And she couldn't even swallow medications because she had a risk or she had a fear of choking. So that's why she was referred to Dr. Brian Weiss, who's a very well-known psychiatrist, in order to heal her. So what Dr. Brian Weiss basically discovered is that all the phobias and anxieties that she was having from a past life transferred to this life because she did not deal with them. So and his discoveries came from through regression therapy, where he was able to unveil all her past lives. And then when he consciously brought that to her attention, the soul fully understood that she must transform herself. And just the memory or soul consciousness was able to fully transform her to heal all her current illnesses. It's a very interesting book if you would like to read. So World Health Organization has defined health as being a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, those three aspects. So one wonders, should spiritual well-being be added as well? So, and one thing to contemplate on is, can a spiritual approach, which empowers the mind and helps with a clear intellect, a higher consciousness, a different way of looking things, overcome all these physical, mental, and social dilemmas that we are facing today? So we will come back to the World Health Organization definition, but I just wanted to show you some of the benefits of meditation. So the first question in mind was, is there really evidence in science or in research and publications that would prove that meditation is really effective? So I looked at the literature that is published. There's a big database for medical literature. It's called PubMed, and you can look up research there. So there were about 2,500 articles published about the effects of meditation on health. So that was really amazing. It was unexpected to find so many articles that provide proof, real proof, that meditation is really effective. I don't want to bore you with all those terms, but just to name a few, you see on the physical body, meditation has very good health benefits. If you notice on the left-hand side corner, you see that it works well for chronic pain relief. It works well for boosting immunity and healing wounds. It also works on the brain, healing the brain. It can help with sleep and so on. With mental health, it helps with depression, anxiety, and even autism and addictions. And regarding social health, meditation helps with workplace wellness, good clinical performance, and it also reduces employee distress. So again, we come back to the definition of health through the World Health Organization. And you see that physical health, mental health, social health is included in there. But at the heart of all these that affects all health aspects is spiritual health. So how important spiritual health is in affecting all our other health aspects. So you also see that if one doesn't have good physical health, that might cause high blood pressure, diabetes, sleep disturbance, breathing issues. And mental health, we already gave some examples, such as depression, anxiety, stress, and social health as well. I know this is a very complex term, neuroplasticity. Neuro means nerves, plasticity means changing themselves. So it's basically a new scientific term that talks about the mind that changes the brain. And there's a very nice book about that. It's called The Mind That Changes Itself. And it was written by a very well-known physician who looked at specifically stroke patients and how when there is a dysfunction in the brain as a result of a blood clot, and then there's destruction in the brain, if we empower the brain with the right thoughts, with the positive thoughts, the brain can actually change its structure and other parts of the brain can take over, and the brain might have the ability to heal completely. So how wonderful it is if a man could to be the sculptor of his own brain. So one very important question here is, how do Raj Yoga meditators benefit their bodies and minds? So after looking at all the evidence in the literature, evidence-based medicine, several mechanisms were identified, such as a strong ability of the brain to shift the brain waves. The other mechanism or way of how meditators can change their body is control over our central nervous system. There's also increased secretion of happy hormones and painkillers, and a decrease in the stress hormones, and better body oxygenation. And we will look at evidence for each point of those, how meditators can affect their bodies. And these are just a few examples of many numerous examples. So to answer the first question about how meditators can change their brainwaves, there is a very well-known scientist in this field, the scientist of brainwaves. And he comes from Europe. His name is Jose de Silva. And he's a legendary mind science pioneer. And he spent his whole life looking into brainwaves. And he created a system called the Silva Life System. You can Google it and look at the details as well. But the results of his study show that the brain is not like we thought. It's actually similar to a computer. And the brain has some electricity or electrical activity going on inside it. And sometimes this is how nerve cells communicate with each other. So you see the electricity of the brain in this picture. Now, in order for science to measure the electricity of the brain, they use something called an electroencephalography, which means that they attach those electrodes or wires to the head, and they can measure the electricity of the brain. That is a well-known mechanism. It's even used for the diagnosis of seizures and epilepsy. So this scientist measured those brain waves or electricity of the brain. And he found that there are 4 or 5 different brain waves that exist. And they look like that. So if you look at the top picture, you will see that there are gamma waves of the brain. And this is when we are usually very focused on studying or working or high mental activity. And then you see less frequent waves. You see that they're a little bit slower when we are at an awake state or a conscious state. And then those waves slow down further when we are mentally and physically relaxed. And those are called the alpha waves. if you notice. And then there are even slower waves that are called theta waves. And these waves happen with deep sleep or deep meditation. And then the delta waves is when a person is completely unconscious or in very deep sleep, where the person is not aware of anything going on around them. So this whole study of the brain, the whole point of that is that healing of the body and the mind occurs at two different wavelengths of the brain: alpha waves and beta and theta waves, alpha and theta. And these are the states of mind that we want to achieve in order to be able to heal our bodies. So mind science research suggested that the key to health and happiness and enlightenment lies in those states of mind, the alpha and the theta. So the question is, if we can attain the alpha and theta stages during deep sleep, how can we achieve those states during wakefulness? Because we need to be awake, we need to be aware and conscious in order to be able to transform our body and transform our mind. We don't want to be in deep sleep because we have no control over that. So we want to achieve those states during wakefulness. This is one published study, and it's called Just a Minute Meditation, Rapid Voluntary Conscious State Shifts in Long-Term Meditators. Anyway, I don't want to go into details, but the conclusion of that study was that short-term meditators were able to access the alpha stage only, and long-term meditators were able to shift to both alpha and theta. So you see that long-term meditators, because they're able to access that theta wave or that theta electricity or state of mind, they are able to heal themselves much better. And they also discovered that non-meditators could not shift their brain waves. So now, moving on to the next point. So the first point was that brain waves can be shifted into states of healing through meditation. Secondly, through meditation, we can control our nervous system. So in order to understand that better, we have two parts of our nervous system. One is called the sympathetic nervous system, and this is responsible for the fight or flight response. For example, if a person is being attacked by a dog and he or she have to run away from the dog, then that part of the system is activated. All the nerves are activated and they activate the muscles and the person runs away. So that part is responsible for a stress response, basically, the sympathetic nervous system. And the other part of the nervous system is the parasympathetic nervous system, which kicks in or takes over in our body when we are resting or digesting our food or when we are relaxed. So always there should be a balance between those two nervous systems. We don't want to be stressed all the time, and we don't want to be in the rest stage all the time. But if we want our body to heal better, then we want the parasympathetic nervous system that's responsible for resting and healing to kick in and be stronger than the sympathetic nervous system, which is causing us so much stress. And this is what we achieve through meditation. We actually activate our parasympathetic nervous system and deactivate the sympathetic. And this just tells us what happens when the sympathetic nervous system is activated or when there's a stress response. Our body keeps producing what we call epinephrine, which is another term for adrenaline. So that's why when there's production of adrenaline, there's the fight and flight response, and all the systems of the body are activated, such as we breathe faster, we run faster, and eventually the body might get exhausted. If we are stressed long-term, whether we're psychologically stressed or whether we're physically stressed, then the body starts producing another hormone, and it's called cortisol. This is the long-term stress hormone. And cortisol exhausts the body completely. So when there is a release of cortisol, or the stress hormone in the body, these are a few of the things that can happen to the body. We start having respiratory problems, for example, such as asthma. Weight gain, the mechanism for weight gain is activated, especially abdominal weight gain, which is the most dangerous, causing hypertension and diabetes. It also increases our insulin resistance and leads to diabetes. Headache is another symptom that can be caused by an increase in the stress hormone, and of course, poor gut health. So there was another study, a Raja Yoga study, that focused on the nervous system. And they discovered that when we do Raja Yoga meditation, we are activating our parasympathetic nervous system, which is the nervous system that helps us relax and that helps us heal. And that would override the stress. Another study was also published that shows how meditators compared to non-meditators had reduced anxiety and reduced stress hormone level. At the bottom of each screen, you can refer to the study later, and you can access it if you need a reference. Also discovered that Raja Yoga helps with body oxygenation. When the body is more relaxed, then more oxygen would enter through the respiratory system. It fills out the lungs better. So then oxygen can better reach the body and can better reach the heart, reducing risk of heart attacks, reducing risk of strokes, and helping with respiratory issues. And basically, there is a better oxygenation for the whole body when one meditates. And this is the research that concerns oxygenation and the effect on the respiratory system. So they discovered that long-term meditators had better breathing, lower blood pressure and pulse, and even lower cholesterol. So if you look at that, these are the happy hormones in our body. One of the happy hormones is called serotonin. It's usually produced in the brain. And another happy hormone is dopamine, which is also produced in the brain. And it makes us feel good about ourselves. There's another happy hormone called oxytocin, and that's released during childbirth, which is related to bonding as well. And endorphins, which are basically naturally produced painkillers in the body that would help our pain go away and make us feel good. So you probably have heard those terms, especially in medicine, serotonin and dopamine. These are the happy hormones that all mood medications work on. So if somebody is on an antidepressant, for example, those medications would be working on the happy hormones, which is serotonin and dopamine. So why do we have to, rely on external chemicals to help us produce more of those hormones if we can produce them ourselves and be the masters of our own body? So how do Raja Yoga meditators benefit their bodies and minds? We reviewed how we can shift our electricity of the brain to get us into a state of healing, how we can shift our nervous system or the brain and the spinal cord activity controlling the whole body in order to help with healing, and how we can also help produce more happy hormones and more painkillers to keep us enlightened and happier, and how we can decrease our stress hormones and increase the oxygenation in our body to provide every cell of the body with more oxygen to be better able to function. And those are just a few benefits of meditation. So the soul, as you see, is the master of the body and the master of the brain. So since the soul controls everything, the soul can control our body functions, the soul can control our brain functions. The first question to ask is, who are we? Are we truly the body or the brain? Or are we the soul sitting there in the brain, controlling all those functions? So if everything is controlled by our state of mind, how important is it to empower that mind to achieve good health? So the soul in the body is like the CEO of a company, where if soul, if the employee is like the brain and the body, keep working very, very hard to achieve better health and to achieve their goals. But if the CEO of the company is corrupt, then the whole company falls apart. So that provides like a better understanding of how important it is to empower the soul. And empowering the soul is through Raja Yoga meditation. Through the power of positive thoughts and remembering God, we can get all those treasures of love, of happiness, of purity, of power. And all those treasures and powers would help us transform our minds in order to be better able to control the brain and the body. So we kind of have the ability to have full control of on our brain and on our body if we can empower our minds. So connect with God and transform your mind and body.
Amongst all living beings, humans are considered the most intelligent and superior. We humans possess a wonderful and invisible power through which we can make miracles happen. This is the power of thought. The power of thought is the greatest form of energy. Electrical and magnetic energy are examples of physical energy, which are well known, but most of us are unaware of the greatness of thought energy. If humans were to recognize the speciality of this energy, they could accomplish all their wishes. The impact of thought energy is not only seen on matter, but also on human physiology. This impact becomes miraculous when the power of thought is used along with the power of imagination. What is the power of imagination? The power of imagination means to create or draw an image of an object with the subtle eye of the mind, even if that object has never been seen by our physical eyes, or even if it is impossible to see it. Technically, we call this visualization. In humans, the conscious mind has very little control over the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is obedient. Hence, it's very easy to bring transformation at this level. Visualization is a very well-known process for this. In the past 3 decades, visualization has been used as a tool for therapeutic purposes and has proven to be very effective. In Raj Yoga meditation, visualization plays a very important role. Today, many people suffer from diseases such as diabetes, coronary artery diseases, high blood pressure, cancer, and many others. This presentation will inform us how Raj Yoga meditation can help us change this scenario. In fact, all of us have the ability to heal ourselves with natural therapies. The practice of Raj Yoga activates this ability, and as a result, illness can be cured much faster. To get the best results of disease-free and healthy life, a patient must apply the various methods of Raj Yoga meditation techniques shown in this presentation, along with their prescribed medicines from their doctor. Come, let us experience a more beautiful and healthier world which can be achieved through Raj Yoga meditation. The process of making the self a pure and powerful spiritual being by imbibing spiritual light rays from the point of light form of Almighty Supreme Soul is called Raja Yoga. The Supreme Soul is the ocean of purity, serenity, and holiness. Hence, when we remember Him, our minds also start to become serene, pure, and holy. As a result of which we can achieve control of our thoughts, and our mind power increases. With this mind power, we can achieve all our wishes. We can perform many positive actions by directing our thoughts in righteous directions. This itself is experimentation with Raja Yoga. Our body is like a machine that works day and night continuously throughout our lives from birth till death. Food provides us with the required energy to run this machine. Whatever we eat throughout the day is transformed into glucose that is supplied to each and every cell of the body by our blood. Glucose provides energy to all the cells. A fixed amount of glucose is essential to run all the metabolic activities of the body. If this quantity is reduced, an adverse effect shows up in just a few minutes. Our brains cannot function without glucose. This is the reason why people faint when their brains do not receive enough glucose. Contrary to this, increase of glucose levels in the blood also affect the body adversely. To regulate the balance of glucose in the blood, our body secretes many hormones. Amongst these hormones, insulin is one of the main ones. Insulin is secreted by the beta cells found in the pancreas near the stomach. Insulin plays the key role as a carrier in spreading glucose to each cell in the body. When glucose cannot enter the cells due to unavailability of insulin, the glucose level in the blood starts rising. This situation is called diabetes. In type 1 diabetes, the production of insulin stops due to complete damage of beta cells. In type 2 diabetes, more than the required insulin is secreted in the beginning. But due to obesity or some other reason, the carrier ability of insulin to carry glucose is finished completely. This is called insulin resistance. Later on, the formulation of insulin almost stops in patients with type 2 diabetes, resulting in various physical problems that occur due to high glucose levels in the blood over a long time. A sentient energy. I am a soul. Almighty Father, Supreme Soul, is my supreme doctor. Rays of purity, peace, and power are coming upon me. I, the soul, am being fulfilled with these powerful rays. Now I let these wonderful rays flow into my body. Rays are touching the pancreas situated at the back side of my stomach. I can see the divine effect of these rays. Formation of beta cells have started in my pancreas. These newly formed beta cells are secreting optimum amount of insulin. Due to this, glucose is being transported very easily to all the cells in my body. It is ending insulin resistance in my body. Glucose particles are entering each and every cell and spreading energy in my body. I, the soul, can see that the glucose level in my body is becoming normal. Each and every organ is becoming healthy by receiving light from the Supreme Light, Supreme Father. All the abnormalities of the body due to diabetes are now being cured. The cholesterol level in my blood is also balancing. I, the soul, can see my body becoming healthy now. Both the soul and the body are becoming pure and healthy by the rays of purity and power from the Almighty Supreme Father. Now, I have an absolutely healthy mind and body. I am ever healthy. An ever disease-free life and happiness is my eternal birthright. Practice this regularly for at least 5 minutes in the morning and the evening. You can revise this exercise in your free time during the day as well. Both your mind and your body will become healthy. Diabetic patients will definitely be benefited by this practice. Om Shanti.